writer, and I am very pleased to be able to, thanks to Henning, I'm invited to participate. I also danced with Beverly, and that's how I met Henning in 1994, doing a piece with Beverly, where I had the wonderful experience of actually assisting her, and then she went on to do a solo for me some years later. And I'll just say this, one of the gestures was, and I have a feeling she's right here. So that was very nice. It was one of the great pleasures, probably the happiest experience I ever had dancing with Beverly, you know, so wonderful thing. And I was interested in finding out from other people about their personal experiences with her. I know some people have had the work handed down and whatnot, but would anyone want to start? You want to talk about that, Deborah?
Well, I had the great pleasure of working with Beverly back in the early 80s. I was very young, green dancer, and I was taken into her company and learned all kinds of works, and we toured. It was fabulous, and I think in the program they included some of this, but I just remember being backstage watching her do some solos and just, I mean, couldn't take my eyes off of that woman. And I think she was actor, dancer, but also illusionist. She really made things that didn't exist for the audience, for me. And I learned so much just observing her and listening.
Does anyone want to add to that, Tandy?
I actually wrote Henning and said, why did you ask me? I was totally thrilled. I had the opportunity of being with Beverly in Angers, France, where she was leaving teaching and I was coming in to teach. And so we spent about a week and a half together laughing, telling stories, and that's where I met her. I never had class with her. I was in the Nicolai Company, so the tradition is set up there. And it's been a privilege to work with these marvelous artists on this exceptional artist's work.
Well, Tandy, the reason I asked you is because you're one of my dance idols. And I saw cello lessons when Beverly performed it downtown in Janet Stoner's loft. And it just stayed with me, the black cloud. What am I going to do with this black cloud? And that resonated. And I thought, when I put the program together, that this piece needs a performer worthy of the piece, and you came to mind, so that's where that is at. And Beverly I first saw at the Joyce in a series called Woman Works in 1989, and then I joined the Nicolai Lewis Company, and she happened to be teaching company class, and she just sort of took me under her wing, and when Nick died, asked me to perform in her work. And Shards was premiered when I was dancing with her, so that made it close to my heart, this sort of the homage to Nicolai, who made the muse fly, right? Or made the broken body fly. So that's a little bit of that background for me, Tandy and Beverly and the piece.
My first experience with Beverly Blossom, she actually came in and subbed at Juilliard when I was a student there. And believe me, this class was like none other at Juilliard. I loved it, you know. Just great. And even though Hanya taught there, Bev was just another engine entirely. And then I danced with Murray Lewis's company for a long time, and of course, then became part of that family with very much part of that, saw her work then. And when I started putting together a German lineage solos from the German lineage, and of course asked Bev if I could learn Dad's ties, and she said, sure, why not? You know, and I was like, fabulous. So I got to work with her very carefully on Dad's ties, and I treasure every moment.
Okay. Oh, one of the piece that she did for me was called Muse, and it was based on a Dorothy Parker poem. And I looked at your piece was 93, and the piece she did with me was a little bit later, but I thought that was very interesting. The process, how she would pick a poem or something like that, and then build around it, you know.
I'd love to see that.
Well, it's only been performed once, which was at Henning's 10th anniversary, and the way that came about was that Beverly was supposed to be dancing in that performance, and she slipped on her costume and she couldn't perform. So her name was on the flyers, and it was, what are we going to do? And then she said to Henning, well, why doesn't Chris do the piece that I just choreographed for her? So that's why it saw the light of day. But, I don't know.
I'd be curious how David got involved in this.
Yeah, so I never had the honor of meeting Miss Blossom, but I had an opportunity to do some of her work with over here, and I was a rehearsal assistant, and we repurposed this solo as multiple duets. And being a rehearsal assistant, I really got to really feel her spirit and really get the opportunity to really make things my own, but from her own intention. So she lives on through the dance language, and it's really an honor to have that opportunity. Yeah.
Yes, and I have to say, when I saw you do that piece the other day, which I told you, and I told Doug, who is here, I thought you did such a great job of keeping her spirit alive with the gestures. I mean, you had so assimilated the spirit of her work, and the way you were able to pass it on was just glorious for me. I mean, I really have to salute you for the technique also of the dancing itself, you know. She did a lot, when you took class with Beverly, I mean, it was really, there was a lot of movement, and so I found that was particularly beautiful to see in that piece.
Since you were just talking about the passing down, so now we have a Beverly Blossom Foundation that Doug and Michael, who is here, her son, hello Michael, and I are part of. And so we are now, the work can now be licensed so that solo artists as well as universities or professional companies who want to do group work, you know, that there's no official way of obtaining the work. And part of the idea of bringing this festival here to New York is getting that idea out, and that, you know, it's not the Balanchine Trust or the Jerome Robbins Foundation, but it's the Beverly Blossom Foundation, and now we have a working model in place, which we are very happy about. So, do you want to open it up to the audience?
Yes, please. Are there questions in the audience, Beata?
Thank you. I'm curious, is there a tradition of choreographers who incorporate dancers who speak in theater, or was she one of the innovators of that?
Well, Nikolai had it. We had it with the Nikolai Company, where we would sort of speak gibberish, actually, in some of the pieces. Very rarely would he be as literal as Beverly, but I think, I don't know, what is it?
Bev, I think, didn't necessarily make a distinction between theater and dance. And I believe she considered herself an actor or an actress. But you wonder, what is the difference and why? What do you think about it? So, and of course, there's lots of speaking and dancing and speaking, but she does it in such a unique way.
In fact, when she wanted me to do the Dorothy Parker poem, she didn't want me to speak in my normal voice. She was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. She had this kind of low, she said, it's not even important really exactly what you're saying. Life comes hurrying, or life flies slow. And she was really on my case about booming with the voice as opposed to speaking in the normal voice, which was kind of interesting. Did you have anything to say? You did a lot of speaking in your piece.
Right. Well, I think that for me, the poem itself has so many layers that it was really fun to play with how we brought them out and kind of and relating to the dance that happened before him, how it kind of, the back and forth with the audience, once they've seen the movement section and then it goes to the poems, how the memory of what they just witnessed in the movement comes back.
Right.
Which is really interesting how she does that.
And I find with her work, it makes me want to cry, and then I want to laugh, and then it brings out so many emotions as I watch it. So, do you have any feelings about that too?
Since I learned this piece from video, I really had to go into figuring out my own inner narrative and how to use surf between the dark and the light, between what's the corner that you turn to go into the way we live our lives, which is, it alternates between the joyful and the complicated and all of the things that she brings forward. So I found it a great gift to be able to work with that passage, that transition, how to make the turn.
Yeah, and I'd say, as wonderful a choreographer as Bev was, she was also an amazing director. And that's another thing, like, what's the difference, you know? Because she would bring things out. When she was coaching Dad's ties, we tried it all different ways, the opening little speech, and it ended up being basically what I wanted to do with it. But to get to that point, we had to go through these other things.
She was very precise, very detail-oriented, you know, and if anyone wants to add to your experience with that, maybe.
Beverly, yes, precise, particular, very clear how she wanted things, and I think that made it easy. There's a difference between being particular and being difficult. You know, if you're so I think that was the thing with Beverly, and she got her way. So she she insisted on being particular.
Yes, exactly. But always, as I mentioned before, I had such a joyful experience with her. I mean, everyone who knew her must have, would have to agree with me that she was such a beautiful soul, such a wonderful person. I know Henning and Beverly and I would go out for coffee or whatever, and she was just...
And she had this wonderful imagination. We were rehearsing at a place in the East 20s that belonged to Amira. I don't know who's last, but the last one is exactly. What was the name?
Myra Hershansky.
And we walked out of the studio, and Beverly closed the door, and she said, "Ah, good old Myra." And she said, "Oh, you know her?" And Beverly said, "No." But with that name, she must be ancient. So she had a particular picture of that person. And she might have been a young girl, who knows? But Beverly had the imagery that she just would give to the good old Myra, and you could just make a dance about good old Myra right there, the way she said it. So.
I noticed with the costuming how precise it was. I was wondering, Tammy, was that the original costume? It looked like it.
Michael, do you want to address that?
Was that the original costume?
Well, when Michael Blossom, Beverly's son, when Tammy was going to do the piece, we all told her, "You'll find something that will work for you." And I looked as hard as I could to find the original costume. I didn't seem to have it. I studied the video. I looked through everything that she left behind. Couldn't find it. But Tandy continued to say, "What I have isn't right. It's not summoning the spirit of Bev." So I continued to look, and I said, "Well, I have some things here that might work." And I shipped her a box, and she put it together, and it really looked like what she wore in the video. I don't think it's exactly what it was, but you summoned her with the costume. So I'm glad you continued to press it.
I thought it was the original costume.
But were those the original ties?
The ties were, it started with actually my grandpa's ties. And they weren't enough for the piece, so she continued to add to it. And then when she taught the piece to Betsy, they needed a second set. And so Betsy's set probably has none of my grandpa's ties.
That's correct.
Fantastic. Are there more questions from the audience? Go, yes.
First of all, thank you so much. It was so moving, and to see poetics on the stage. You so rarely see that today. It seems like everything sort of comes at you and assaults you in some way that you could enter into it. There's so many ways. So thank you for that. I wanted to find out too, the work that exists, these were all solo works, and I wondered, is there work in the repertory that's group work that would be commissioned as well? And how many are there?
How many? I don't know. I was just about to answer quite a few because Beverly was on faculty at the University of Illinois, and she regularly did group pieces. So she did group pieces elsewhere as well. But so there is quite a bit archived, and now. In conjunction with the festival, the New York Public Library, the Joe Robbins Dance Division, is digitizing their archives and will share them with the foundation. So there's a treasure trove, and as you saw with the first piece, Sands, that certainly is a big ensemble piece, but then there are all kinds of groupings and numbers.
So that the works that you made on the company would be different than necessarily the works you did in the school. I mean,
Yes. Yeah.
I spoke to Michael about silent film and vaudeville and how that might have influenced her work. Could you share that with us?
Yeah, so Mom was born in 1926 in Chicago, and she had a younger sister who was a couple of years younger. And according to her stories, my grandma would get sick and tired of having the kids around, so she would give them some money to go to the double feature. And back then, there were still vaudeville acts performing in between the movies. Not only that, but I think we had some uncle or cousin or something who was actually a vaudeville performer. So she was heavily influenced by vaudeville, and then of course she went on later to dance with Nikolai, who was very modern and kind of the opposite of vaudeville in some ways, and in the German expressionist tradition with Mary Bigman and Anya Ullman. When it was time for her to do her own choreography and her own work, she certainly was heavily influenced by Nick, but clearly she incorporated a lot of her early influences as well. So I think it's a cool combination of German expressionism with vaudeville.
Yeah. More? Go ahead.
I just want to say thank you for this performance. It was amazing. I came on Friday, and to see the rest of the second half of the show, which wasn't performed on Friday, was refreshing and amazing, and just contributes to the genius of Beverly and you all as artists. So thank you for that. I kind of have a question for everybody, but I'm going to do one for now at the moment. And I think I kind of want to start with Deborah. Is that your name? I want to start with you. You said that you joined the company when you were very young. How old were you?
I was 19 and 21 when I was with her. And then I also got to work with her when I went back for my master's in dance at U of I. And she worked with me as a mentor there as well, which was really great. And then the two solos that I did this evening, when I got a New York State Council of the Arts grant to do a solo program, I came to Beverly and asked her if she had anything, and she offered those to me, which was great. And so I got to rehearse with her at her apartment in Tudor City, and it was really remarkable. So I've had her as a touchstone for many years, which has been a beautiful experience.
My follow-up to that is at 19 and 20, even for myself, because I'm a dancer, and when I was 19, I had got my first job with a professional company in Denver, Colorado, with Cleopatra Robinson. At 19, I was still so young, and you think you still know everything and all that. And then I had a lot of breakthroughs in that, and because of so much I did not know. Dealing with Beverly and hearing that she's so particular, and so she knows exactly what she wants. And being a female, going with another female, right? So there's that other dynamic to that. What was your breakthrough, and what experience through that breakthrough that you live with to this day? Because you have such a strong presence on stage, so I'm curious.
Well, I think I go back to just watching Beverly backstage and just being around her and her intensity. I mean, she was a presence. And I think that when I witnessed that, it was magic. And of course, I want to do that. So, so that was over and over again. She brought me that whenever I came back to work with her.
Last question?
There were some moments in a couple different solos that I saw that were super engaging, and just these very small moments of like arms going out and then coming in towards the center. And I was wondering, as the performers, if you had moments or qualities of her movement that when you watched it were very engaging, and if they were the same moments that were satisfying to perform, or if there were what was really satisfying about performing the work was something different than what was most engaging to watch.
Anyone want to speak to that?
Like I said, I never met Miss Blossom, but I feel the beauty of doing at least my piece is there's so many moments that were engaging, and then I would do it again, and it would never be the same moment. There was always something new, always a new approach, a new substance, a new experience. But she really felt what she did, and I felt that relayed a lot with choreography and her intention. So yeah, a lot of many moments.
You want to add to that?
Becca High. She was my student a bunch of years ago. I haven't seen her in like, I don't know how long. Great question. Perceptive. No, I think Bev's work, and there's a lot of space in that work. And we were talking about the clutch point between trying to, revere Bev Blossom and do well by her, but also you have to be absolutely your own and be authentic. And so there's this kind of constant unfolding and discovery, at least for me, every time I do it. It's like, oh man, I didn't realize this was in here. It's like mining. You keep going, kind of finding other little tunnels to pursue. I hope that somehow answers your question. Yeah.
I think her clarity of gesture, and then to take her time and to repeat, to not be afraid of repeating. And you as an audience member wanted to change. And then when she changes, you are grateful. you are. And so this audacity, I think, as a creator, to not just please, but to make a point that works theatrically. I think that is something that I learned from her, and that is to tease that on stage is a lot of fun.
So in a way, what connects it all up for me is the presence that you see, because I learned it only from video, and to see presence on video is difficult. But what is so clear is staying in that present moment and making a decision. And, it's tricky when you're not connected to her. I wrote Michael a note just before I came to New York. I went, how to find that place where you're honoring her sister, because it's an homage, but it's funny, and it's poignant. And how, if it were my own sister, it'd be one thing, but because it's removed, it's somebody else's, then does it need to be more serious in a way, more careful and respectful? But the reality is, once you've done your homework of the learning, then the moment on stage is you rediscovering it and just being there with what's the meaning right now, with this group, with this person, with this material that we've learned.
Are we out of time? Yeah. Okay, we're out of time, so thank you all for
Okay, so email me. We'll try to connect.
Yeah, I'm here for, I'm going to Tuesday also. I live up
Yeah, beautiful. Oh, thank you. I need that or someplace.
Congratulations.
I'm fine, we're very